Hi there. So today I'm going to be showing you how I made and I'm going to use a school grading sheet. So I've already gone ahead and done some things. I put where the school name might be up here. I've also noted that this is going to be a unit grade sheet as opposed to a semesterly or quarterly grade sheet. And then I'm going to say it's my period 2 biology class because I'm going to specify. If I wanted to, I could copy this sheet and I would add it over here. But I'm just going to be doing this, working with this one sheet today. And then off to the right of this, I've put my grading scale so I can determine based on what their average is, what their letter grade would be appearing on their report card. After I did that, I went into the data entry. So in order to enter any data, I'm going to need to set up a grid. At the top, I have my columns of what the information is going to go into. So student name, ID. I've also included seat number in this because I changed the seat number for each unit. And if I want to look back and see maybe why a student isn't doing as well as they should have, I can look at maybe a cause being where they're seated. I also have a place for the average and then all the different sort of assignments they will have throughout that unit. So several homework assignments, lab and classwork assignments, quizzes, and then the test. The test comes in two parts because traditionally in the schools I've worked in, there is a written part of the test and then there is a multiple choice part of the test, and they are taken on the same day but receive separate grades. And then if you'll come down. So I started entering, it's just a theoretical classroom because I'm not currently teaching. So I've numbered the students all the way down to 31. That is the maximum classroom size that you will see within a public school, high school classroom. I also have a place for their student ID number so I can look them up that way if I ever want to delete this column or have it not in view if I'm showing grades to keep anonymity for other students. But once I entered this information and all the way down to the student number, I highlighted the entire grid, hit insert, and then said table. And that's what gave me this table. And when I did the table, it also gives me these drop-down menus, which I can then decide if I want to go from smallest to largest, largest to smallest, or if I want to exclude certain numbers, I can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and enter some data, and we will be right back with you. All right, so I've gone ahead and entered some random numbers between 0 and 100 based on percentage for homework 1. And I realized that when I got down here that I'm also probably going to want to know an average of homework 1. So what I can do is in the column after my last student, I can enter average. And then I'm going to go back to, so I'm going to click here. I'm going to say table. So design. I'm going to say resize table. And I want to make sure that it goes until 36, which it does now. So you can see here that this is now a part of my table. So I'll hit OK. And then I'm going to go here. And in this column, I'm going to say equals average, parenthesis, and I'm going to say this column. Hit enter. And that's, so the average on that homework 1 is a 73.4194. And then the beautiful thing of this drop-down menu is I can also organize it from, let's say I want to see who got the best scores. I can see that 4 students got 100%, and I can scroll down to see who didn't do as well. So the average is about here, which is lower on the list because we do have several students who got zeros. So 2 students got zeros because they did not submit that assignment. So I'm going to probably go ahead and drag these grades over to fill out the rest of the homeworks. So that way I can continue doing data. So we'll be back with you in one more second. So right now I'm taking the grades, the random grades I entered on the homework 1 and dragging them over to fill out the rest of the grade book. Now this will mean that each student's average grade will be the grade that they got in any given assignment. However, I don't want to have to spend too much time entering random numbers into the grade book since I do not have an actual class at the moment. So I'm going to continue doing this for each of my students. And then I'm going to show you how I'm going to calculate their average grade should there be actual grades within this grade. All right, so I've gone ahead and dragged across their homework 1 grades to fill out the grade sheet all the way through the test. But I'm also going to do this for the bottom average section. So when I do the average, although it will be the same for each of these because they have the exact same grades, if I were to change this one student's grade to, let's say, a 98, you would see that this does change minutely. So now that I have the full grade sheet filled out, I am going to enter in the average. So I'm not having, so for this section, I can't just use the average symbol that I used across the bottom because I'm not having each individual homework assignment weighted the same as all the other labs or classworks, quizzes, or tests. I want them weighted based on a percentage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the total homeworks count for 30% of the grade. So how I'm going to enter this, I'm going to say equals, but in order to average them, so I'm going to say equals, it's going to be the average of, and I'm going to select this here. So the average of these, and I'm going to multiply it, star symbol, by, and I want it to be 30%, so 0.3. Okay, then I'm also going to add, and I'm going to do another average. And I want the labs and classworks are going to equal 20% of the grade. So I'm going to drag through the classworks. So these are going to be equal to 20%. So I'm going to multiply it by 0.2. And I'm also going to add the average again, this time of quizzes. So I'm going to say quiz 1, 2, and 3. And quizzes are going to be worth 10%. So multiply it by 0.1. And then the last thing I have to add is the tests. So I'm going to take the 2 test grades and tests are worth 40%. So I'm going to multiply it by 0.4. I'm going to close my parenthesis. And then I'm going to hit enter. So as you can see, it did my average for all of the assignments. Now, all of them are going to match that first homework grade because all of the homeworks, all of the assignments are having the same grade based on how I entered them, except for student number 27, where I adjusted their homework number 7 grade. So if I were to go in and change any one of these grades, there's 2 columns that are going to be affected. It's going to be both the overall average, here, which is going to show the actual percentage calculated grade and the individual assignment average down here. So if I were to go, let's say to let's say student 20, and I want to say that he actually got 100% on this assignment, his average is going to go up to 79.7%. So you got an extra 0.7. And then the homework, the specific assignment average went up to 74.09677. So these are the 2 resultants. So as of right now, just based upon having this chart laid out, I can enter the students' grades on any given assignment and be able to tell them what their average is. And that average I can then reference up here to my grading scale. And let's say they're at 100%, well, then they're at an A+. But let's take student number 16, he's at a 50. So he's actually currently going to be at an F. You need at least a 60 to get to your D-. But there's other functionalities with having this grading sheet within Excel that's helpful, not just the calculating of averages and assignment grades. You can also use pivot tables within Excel. Now, before we get into pivot tables, there is another type of grading that's not percentage based, that's point based, and a lot of teachers tend to do this because they don't have to do the calculations. How they divvy it up is that each assignment that they're doing is worth a certain number of points, and then they tally up the total number of points possible and put the number of points that they received, and that's how they get their grade. So something like a homework assignment might only be 10 points, whereas a test might be worth 200 points. So if I scroll down, because this is a table, that there are table tools. So I can click on this, and if they were going to do it by sum, I could add, so if I went to like charts or totals, I could add a column for sum at the bottom, or I could add a column for sum on the side where it would, for each student, it's going to tell you the sum of what they got on each assignment. So if you were doing this by a point based, that this would be a really great tool to use within your table. But we are not doing point based, we're doing percentage based, which is why we have the average column with our specific calculations of how we're getting that for certain weights. All right, so now moving on to pivot tables. So I want you, if you click anywhere within your table and you hit Control A, it's going to copy the whole thing. And I'm on Insert, and then I'm going to hit Pivot Table. Now it's going to ask me where, so I do want this table, and it's going to want, I want it on this worksheet. I need to pick a location for it. So I do not want it to put it in the middle of my table. So I'm going to say, let's say 38. I'm going to say A38. I'm going to give myself a line gap. I'm going to say OK. So if I scroll down, I now have a pivot table starting at A38. Now, if I go over to this side, I can then start deciding what's going to go in my pivot table. So let's say I want in my pivot table for it to be homework and then student name. So it will tell me my average here, and then it will tell me which student got what on the homework 1. Now let's say I want to see my seat number and how that affects my test part 1 and 2. It will tell me that's sum, but that doesn't really help me in the specific instance because I don't want it to sum my seat number. So I will look at average homeworks 1. Okay, so and then I also look at student name versus lab 3. So at the top, it's going to give me whoever did the best on lab 3, and as I scroll down. So it's just a way of doing it outside of the matrix. Now, if you want to go within your table, or I just called it a matrix, you can also click on any one of these buttons, and you can sort smallest to largest, largest to smallest. You can leave any particular one out. And then at the very top, you'll see the highest. Now, student 1 already had 100%, but students 12 and 13 also have 100%, so you'd see them bumped up to the top, and so did student 27. So this is just a comprehensive grade book. And the beautiful thing about this is that this can be saved and it can be shared, and it can be printed out to keep a log. And then certain programs also allow you to export. So if you've been doing your grading within an online program, they'll allow you to export them into Excel so you can run any data that you need on them. The other thing you can do, so hit Control A to select the table, is you can go to Insert, and you can also say Recommended Charts. So it can you can do charts here. This is your bar charts. So this can be based on students. So I'll probably want to do based on student. I'll hit, so series 1, series 2 is the different grades that they have assignments tacked on. So I'll hit OK. And I can go in and I can edit. So let's say I want to add something. I probably want to add access titles. I'm probably going to add, I'm just going to look at what beautification marks I want to add. but this would be good for when teachers have to present their data. Instead of delivering this giant chart full of numbers, you can deliver it in chart format, because students will be, or teachers will be held accountable for their student data for each unit. During your department meetings, you'll be asked to share these things. So this is your comprehensive, and then obviously you can add sheets and you can create more. Right here, you can move or copy. I'm going to say, I'm going to copy sheet 2 and say OK. Now if I go into sheet, move or copy. So move that to the end, but I want to copy it. I want to create a copy in sheet 2. So say OK. So now I have a copy of this sheet. So if I were to back it up and remove the data from within here and go back to the template form, I could make one of these for each one of my classes. So if I go into this copy, I can say this is actually going to be for my period 4 class. Hit enter. So this is actually now my period 4 class, and so I can do this for each one of my classes. All right, well, there's the functionality that Excel has with a regular grading sheet, but you do have the option of, if you want to, that I've seen other teachers do, is on the end, you can tack on a student attendance sheet. So for each student, you would look at their attendance, and this would also help compare. Let's say they're missing certain assignments like the student is. You can see if they were absent that day, so maybe they didn't receive the assignment. When you do that, I would also recommend doing a drop-down menu. So if you go to data and you go to data validation, you can say that you want it to be a list, and you can choose like if they were, it's yes or no. So that would be if they were there, yes. If they were there, no. And you could hit OK. And then each column you'd say yes or no down this, and you would highlight it for down this list. So it's also an easy way to take attendance and have it right within the same column per unit. Also a great way to save it for the coming years if you're ever called on to know this information again. So this is your grade sheet. I hope this is useful, and I will also upload this document to my website so that you guys can see it and download it if you'd like. All right, thank you.